Hello, 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 everyone. It's Julia from the Paper and Ink Boutique, and here we are back in my craft room. It's been a couple of weeks. But we're back. I've already been playing. You can tell my hands are all painty already. So tonight I'm going to continue my series on creating backgrounds. And tonight we're going to be talking about gesso, what it is, when to use it, what it does, and then using some paints and stencils to create some backgrounds. So let's get started. Hello. Hi, everyone. Hello. Thanks for joining me. So what I'm going to do, actually here, I'll show you. This is one that I made earlier. So this is a tag that I made. And yes, I use gesso, I use paints, I used a stencil. I did use some paint pens. I used my Poscas. So we'll be talking about those as well. Okay, I'm going to switch over to my overhead camera and we will get started. So just give me a minute to get that going. Perfect. There's the overhead cam. I'm just going to lower it just a little bit. Let's get that straightened out. There we go. Okay, we're good. We are all straightened out. Okay, hello everyone. Hello. Oh, lots of people joining us. Okay, perfect. So if this is your first time joining us, this is Monday Night Live. It has been a couple of weeks since I've done one. I was out of town for a little while, but I'm back. And so tonight it's about creating backgrounds using paint and stencils. Okay, so I get a lot of questions about gesso. What is gesso? What do I do with gesso? Why do I need gesso? When do I use gesso? Those sorts of questions. So before I started tonight, I thought I had lots of gesso here in my scrapbook room. And you know what? I don't. So I do have this one, the Stamperia gesso. Now it is a little bit thicker than what I like to use for this particular demo, but I did use it because it was all I had here. Now, we just got this one back in stock. This is the one I thought I was going to use, but I haven't used this in a little while because we weren't able to sell it, so I wasn't using it to do demos. And there's only about so much left in here. It's almost empty. And it's no good. But I did keep the bottle because I want to let you know that this is now back in stock at the Paper and Ink Boutique. It is the Deco Art Chalky Gesso, and we have it in white. The reason why I love this one is because you get a nice chalky flat finish. And the reason why I like this one is because I do a lot of writing on top of my journal pages. So I know when I'm using gesso, I can use my gel pens, I can use my Posca pens. And because the surface will be smooth, I'm not going to ruin my pens. So I love this one, not only because of the size, because I use a lot of gesso, but because of that nice chalky flat finish that I get. So this is a favorite and it is now back in stock. We have found another supplier. So excited. Okay, now there is a lot of gessos out there. Like I said, I have the Stamperia one, but Ranger has gesso, Vicky Boutin has gesso, many different brands have gesso. What is gesso? Gesso, the way I like to describe gesso is it's kind of like your primer. It's kind of your first layer. You're prepping your surface with gesso. Now, I don't prep all of my surfaces with gesso. When I start with sprays on my art journal pages or any of my projects, I don't use gesso because I want the spray to soak into my paper. The gesso is a primer. It's a protecting surface. So if I was to put this on and then spray on top, that spray is actually going to spread. It's not going to have anything to soak into. So usually I gesso after my spray layer. Okay. Now there's a lot of more information I can give you on gesso and way more information than I have time to share now. But that's basically what it is. If you need a primer surface on your project, maybe you do not want something to soak into your paper layer, you're going to want to start with gesso. If you're working on a canvas, you're going to want to start to use your gesso. Okay. So tonight, that's what I'm going to do. I'm going to show you how to apply your gesso on your surface. Now, I already have some tags prepped. These have all been gessoed because I literally didn't want you to sit there watching paint dry all night. So there are a couple of ways of applying your gesso. One, you can paint it on. That's the easiest way, and I usually dry brush mine on. So I'm just going to stick my brush in there, and I'm just going to start applying that gesso all over my tag. Now, you're going to have a hard time seeing this because it's white on white, but I just dry brush over the entire surface. Okay. Oops. Okay, so there's one easy, fast way to apply your gesso layer. Now, I know some people don't like the brush strokes. Oops, let me hold that up. Don't know if you can see it, but when using a brush, you get brush strokes. I mean, that's just what happens when you use a brush. I like the brush strokes. Some people don't. I'm going to set that aside. We're going to let that air dry for a minute. Let me clean my brush. So if you have any questions, put them in the comments. I can see them. If you do have a question, I'll highlight it on the screen. I'll answer it. Now, sometimes if I don't answer questions, it's because I'm lost in the creative process and I've missed your question, but don't worry, I'll go back in after and I check all the comments and I answer questions then. Let me just wipe that up. Another way of applying gesso, another way I like to do it is by using a spatula. Now, I like to use an offset spatula. Okay, offset means it does not go out straight. It is offset. So, and this is another way to avoid getting the brush strokes if you don't like that. So I'm just going to pick up some gesso on the back of my spatula there. I'm going to take my tag and I am just going to start smoothing that over my surface. Just like so. Now, this has the grommet at the top, so I'm not going to be able to get it completely smooth up there. But if I hold this up now, you're going to see how absolutely smooth that is because I used a spatula. Now, there are some lines in it because I did it pretty fast, but I could smooth it out and get it completely smooth. Now, if it's not completely smooth and you want it to be smooth, you can use, after it's dry, you can use a sanding block and just gently go over that gesso and smooth it out. All right, so I'm going to set that one aside and we'll let it air dry. Okay, let me just wipe this gesso up. So just a couple of easy ways to get your gesso down on your surfaces, your primer layer. That's basically what gesso is. Okay, let me close my gesso up. Hi, everyone. Hi. Like how you're saying hello. That's great. Okay. So now what do I do with my primed layers, my gessoed layers? Now I'm working on tags. You can do this on a scrapbook page. You can do this in an art journal. You can do it on cards. I'm just showing you what it looks like on tags, but all of these techniques can be used for a lot of different surfaces. You can even do these techniques on a canvas as well. Okay, so I'm going to start with this tag. I'm going to bring this one back in again so you can see a close-up look of it. There you go. So I will create this one in a minute, but I do want to just show you a couple of techniques first. So I'm going to set that one aside. Okay, so this is a Stamperia stamp. These are mixed media stamps, which means this back is foam. It does not cling to anything. It is meant to be held in your hand. It will not work in a stamp platform. It will not work on a stamping block because this is not a cling back. It's just foam. So I'm actually going to stamp on this gessoed surface right now. Do I want the stamping to be perfect? Nope, I don't. So I'm just going to randomly apply my ink. Okay. Now what I'm going to do, I could take the stamp and press it on my tag, but because my tag is smaller, what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to lay it on there and just use my brayer to press it into that ink. Perfect. Okay, so there I've got my stamped image onto my tag. Let me set this aside. Okay, I'm going to want to make sure that this ink is dry. Now, I was using the Gina K Amalgam ink. I suggest, if you're going to do this technique, that you use a permanent ink, an archival ink, a Ranger archival, the Gina K, the Memento, anything archival and permanent. Just going to give this a quick dry now. Go. Okay, so I have got surrounding me, I've actually got my Paper Artsy paints in three separate areas, in front of me and off to my left and my right. That's how many Paper Artsy stamps I've got, or Paper Artsy paints. Okay, I'm going to grab, just give me a second, because I wasn't smart enough to get these both ready. I'm going to grab a couple of blues, Cerulean and Deep Sea. You can use any acrylic paint for this. I just happen to love Paper Artsy. So I am going to take just a couple of these. Now I'm going to use my brayer. So I want my paint over here on the flat surface. Let's go over here. There we go. I'm going to take my brayer. This is my Tim Holtz brayer. Love it. I'm just going to pick up that paint and I'm just going to apply it to my tag. Now, depending on your paint, if you happen to have a paint that is more translucent, you're going to see more of your stamped image come through. There we go. So I've applied that on there. Now, because we have applied the paint on a gessoed surface, once I apply my paint and while it's still dry, if I'm looking at this and it's like, oh, I didn't want to cover up that area, you can take a baby wipe and you can wipe that back. Now that stamped image is not going to move because it is a permanent ink on gesso. So there you go. You can see how I wiped that paint back. Wiped it back. And the reason I could do that is because it's sitting on gesso. That's a primer layer. So this paint, the blue paint, has not soaked into the paper, which means I can still move it. It's not permanent until it's dry. And there you go. You can actually wipe it back off the gesso. So yeah, just like that, take your wet cloth, go ahead and wipe back that paint. Once it's dry, it gets a little bit harder to do that, but if it's still wet, it's a lot easier. Okay, so I'm going to go back and I just want to apply more paint. Anyone have any questions at all? That was too much paint. I should not have squeezed that much out. Oops. Now you may have noticed I'm not drawing my paint in between my color application. Okay, so there you go. I went back in again and applied more paint. Now, to me, that looks like too much paint. So again, I'm going to go in with my baby wipe and I'm just going to start wiping it back. Not in all the areas, just some, just a little bit. Just want to expose some of that. Want to have a little bit more white space. There we go. Okay, so I've wiped back some of that paint. So that is what the gesso allows. It gives you that surface to wipe back your paint. Okay, so that is one way of, or one reason why you want to use gesso is if you think you may want to wipe back a layer, put gesso on that first layer. Okay, so there's one. I'm going to set that aside. We'll let that dry. Now I've made a real mess. The reason why I'm wiping back the paint is because I don't want this color mixing with any of my other colors that I go to. Okay, make sure to ask any questions if you've got any. I am wiping back my brayer too. I am notorious for not wiping back my brayer, and it ends up getting like 18,000 layers of paint on it, which I don't always like. So I usually take the time to wipe back my paint. Hi, Sharon. How are you? So next week, which is December 5th, next Monday, we will be back with another Monday Night Live surprise challenge. Those are always fun. I think Nancy B might be surprising me. I don't know. I think that was the last I heard. Oh, my goodness. So much blue paint. I'm going to be a little bit more careful next time. Okay, there we go. So let me show you how to do this one right here. Now I did use black. I wanted it to be a little bit more dramatic, but you can use white paint. And the stencil I used is this one here from Paper Artsy. You can see it's very fine line, lots of open spaces. What is this one? Trying to look at the PS 338. So if you're doing this techniques, I suggest using a stencil with wide open spaces. That's a good one. Another one is this one here. It's another Paper Artsy one, and that is PS 209. So that's another one. Another one that would be good, these ones from All in Create. There's Totally Dotty. This one is called, so this one, Totally Dotty. Or this one, which is Crush on Crescents. Or this one, Creatively Cross. Something with open spaces work really well. Smaller spaces, a little bit harder to get that dramatic effect, but not saying they can't be used. You just won't get that dramatic effect. Okay, so let's bring in another pre-gessoed tag. So yep, this one's already been gessoed. It's good to go. So now I'm going to use a rainbow of colors. I'm going to show you how to do this. Now, the paint under this one, I did brush on. Yes, there is a matching stamp to Totally Dotty. I know. It's, yeah, I'm very excited. I haven't bought it yet, but I need to. Okay. Now applying paint. This one I brushed on. I'm not going to recreate this one. I'm going to show you a different way of applying your paint. So I have got a rainbow of colors. I don't think I'm going to use all of them, but we'll do a warm and a cool. And again, we're going to brayer these on. So I'm going to choose a red, and I'm going to choose Tango. Now, both of these are translucent. Hi, Wendy, which means you will be able to see through them. Oops, there we go. Now I am going to, give me a moment. There was a stamp I was going to use on the background, and I forgot to grab it. Give me a second. Somewhere. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to use this stamp. I feel like I'm totally out of sync because usually I go on and see if we have these in stock. This is HP 1304 EZ, and this is a hot pick from Paper Artsy. If it's not in stock, don't worry. I'm going to be doing an order with them in January, and we'll be restocking some of my favorites, the ones that I keep using over and over again. Okay, so I'm going to take this stamp. I'm going to just hold it in my hand. I'm not going to use a stamping block because I don't want to cover it. I'm going to take my Gina K Amalgam, my Gina K Amalgam ink. I'm going to stamp that. Add some ink, and now I'm going to take this and I'm just going to apply some stamping to the tag. Now I only applied the ink once, and then I went over it several times, 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th generation stamping. There we go. I love a good script stamp. I can never have enough script stamps in my stash. So there we go. I've just stamped on the background there. You can see with that script on it. Why is that? Oh, there we are. Okay, I'm going to take my brayer. I'm going to pick up that red paint. You can see it's not a lot of red paint. I'm going to go across my background like so. Now I'm going to pick up that orange paint. There we go. Covered that on the background. Fast and easy, right? There you go. And you can still see that stamping on there. I'm going to dry this layer of paint. There we go. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to take a green color and I'm going to take a stencil. Now, which stencil do I want to use? You know, these stencils are great, but these two always get stuck together. Always. That means when I store them, I have to make sure they're not stored in the same pocket or they will constantly get tangled up. Okay, there we go. Maybe I want to do this one. I think I might want to do this one. So this one is also all in Create, and it is, they don't put the codes on theirs. I'm trying to remember what it's called. I don't remember. I'm going to do that little mandala. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the green paint. Again, I'm going to use my brayer. There we go. Now, because we live in a dry climate, the paint's going to dry super quick, especially if it's just brayered on, which means I have to work quickly. So I'm going to take my mandala. I'm going to lay it over that green paint, and I'm going to wipe some of that paint back. Those exposed areas. And it has left the impression of the mandala on there. And I just realized that that does not show up very good, which I think is another reason why I use black, so you could see it. Can you emboss on top of gesso? Yes, you can. Yeah, gesso is just acrylic paint. So yes, you can. Now emboss, heat emboss, dry emboss, either. I don't know which one you're talking about, but either you can. I'm going to do this technique with a different tag using black ink. So I'm just going to add more ink to that. And then what I'm going to do, let me just dry this really quick. So this one here, see that fine detail? That's why that technique did not work, because it doesn't have enough big spaces to take away the paint. But what I am going to do is I'm going to take, just to save it, because I do love those colors. Where is my... Oh, I'm just looking for an ink color. Let's see. Going off script a bit. I have too many ink colors. How is that possible? There we go. When all else fails, use ink. There we go. I like it. Ooh, woohoo. Okay, let's put that away. Put that stencil away, clean up. These. Oops. Okay. Going to set that one aside. So let's do this one, but this time I'm going to use this stencil here. So like I said, wide open spaces work so much better for this technique. Let's grab another tag. This time I'm going to dry brush on some colors. So let's start with, just going to put out my colors here. Oop, that's too much paint. And let's do Southern Skies. Like I said, any acrylic paint will work. I'm using Paper Artsy because I like the chalky smooth finish, because again, I like writing on top and I don't like to ruin my Poscas. Okay, so let's start. Perfect. Again, I am just dry brushing on, and I'm doing wet into wet. Let's do green. Let's do blue. And let's do indigo. Perfect. Quick and easy. Nothing difficult about that. I'm going to dry this layer. There we go. Dry. Oops. Yeah, it's dry. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some black paint. This one is another Paper Artsy paint. It's called Little Black Dress. I'm going to take that. And now before any of you freak out, because I'm going to cover this in black paint, because those colors are pretty, it's still wet. Excuse me, I need to fix a boo-boo. There we go. There we go. Wonderful. Now, let me bring in my little black dress paint. Going to squeeze some out on here. Now this I am going to brayer on because I don't want a super thick layer of black paint. So I'm going to take my brayer. I'm going to pick up that black paint. Now remember I said I'm going to work quickly because I live in a dry climate and this paint is going to dry very quick because I'm not putting it on very thick. Okay, grab our baby wipe, grab our stencil, put it over top, and then I'm going to start gently wiping that paint back of all those exposed areas of my stencil. Now I'm using a baby wipe, and of course these have moisture in them. So you sometimes will get moisture still on your tag. So usually what I do is once I do that is I'll take a piece of paper towel and I'll just lay it down just to lift off any of that moisture left behind from the baby wipe, just so it doesn't transfer. There we go. So there is that. Yes, it is kind of like scratch art. You're absolutely right. Yeah, I never thought about that, but yes, you're absolutely right. Okay, now usually what I like to do on this one, I'm just going into my Poscas here. And what do I have? No, I don't want that one. I'm going to grab my white and my gold Posca. So usually what I like to do is just go in and add some detailing around my letters, just to kind of highlight them a little bit. Nothing too crazy. I'm not doing anything that's hard, just a line and a couple of dots. And I'm not doing all of them, just kind of where I feel like it. There we go. Just done a little bit. Oh, do you know what? I think I need some here. There we go. And I'm going to add some splashes of gold. So this is my gold Posca. Love this one too. Just going to squeeze it so that gold starts flowing. And let's just add some splatters of gold paint on there. And how fun is that? Love that. That's fun. Let's just set that aside for right now. Put it with my other two over there. Okay, now there is another technique I want to share with you. Just going to wipe this up. Actually, I'm going to move this out of the way because that is quite filthy and I don't want to spend the time cleaning it on camera. Okay, let's grab another one here. So this, again, pre-gessoed. Pre-gessoed tag. Hi, Jennifer. Pre-gessoed tag. Remember, all of the tags that I'm working on have had a layer of paint put on them. Okay. I'm going to go back and I'm going to use this stamp again, or yeah, this stamp again. I'm going to add some ink. Remember, these are the Stamperia stamps. This time I'm going to just drop it on there, press it, lift it off. Didn't get a great stamp, but that's fine. I didn't necessarily want the image. I just want some stamping in the background. And I'm also going to go back to this stamp. Throw that on my pile of dirty stuff. Here we go. This is that script stamp from Paper Artsy HP 1304. And let's add a little bit of that stamping in there just to kind of fill in those spots. There we go. And that looks great. Ta-da! Love it. Okay, so what do I have in this tag so far? Layer of gesso and some stamping with some archival ink. There we go. I am going to take, let me just see which colors of paint I want to use. I want to use a light blue. And I think I'm going to use a yellow. So I'm going to use lemon meringue and Bora Bora. I'm going to start with the yellow. There we go. I'm going to use my trusty brayer. I'm going to pick that up. Brayer some paint on. I'm not trying to cover the whole thing. I am going to leave some white space. There we go. Perfect. Love that. Love, love, love. Going to dry this paint. There it is. All dry now. I'm going to take the Bora Bora and I'm going to grab one of my other stencils here. Let's use this one. That's good. Let's get Bora Bora. Squeeze out some of that paint. Again, going back to my brayer. Let's brayer some on there and brayer some on there. Okay, so it's not perfect. I didn't brayer a whole, like it's not perfect. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lay this on there, take my baby wipe, and start wiping back some of that Bora Bora. Okay, so there you can go. You can see what that's done. You can see where I've wiped it back. I'm loving that. That's fun. Okay, now because I used the baby wipe, I'm just going to take a paper towel. I'm just going to lay it, just press, because I want to make sure none of the moisture from the baby wipe is on there. So you can see where it was still wet. Okay, let's lift that off. Now, you know me, when I do this, to me, it's all about adding the layers. Now, this looks good. Don't get me wrong. I'm liking it, but I want to tone it down. It's a lot of yellow. It's a lot of blue. So I'm going to come in with, this is heavy cream. Now, a white one would also work. You could also use your gesso. I'm going to use heavy cream. I'm going to come in, pick that up. And now I'm going to try and tone down. I'm going to try and push some of that busyness to the background. There we go. So there, I've kind of toned it down a bit. Sorry, I'm trying to get that. So you can still see all the layers. They're all there, but what the white did is it kind of pushed some of those things to the background. Okay, So that looks good. Now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go back to my script stamp. I'm going to add a bit more stamping on top of this. It's in the background, but let's add a little bit more. And I always forget which is up and which is down. I don't know. I don't think it matters. You know me, I'm always about building up the layers. Perfect. Love that. I'm going to go back to the stencil that I used. Now I use some of these wide open spaces, but I'm going to go and I'm going to come in and I'm going to use these smaller spaces and I'm going to add some inking. So I want to keep, I don't want to add a color that's going to be too, I don't want there to be too much clashing on here. So I'm actually going to grab a yellow. Just give me a minute. Let's see, which one do I want to use? And I am using oxides. Let's do scattered straw. Do some up in this corner. And some there. So there you can see that stencil that I added there. And I am loving that. That is really cool. Okay, now I am going to, nope, I don't want that. Just looking at cerulean. I want to add some more dark edges to this. So I'm going to go back into my blue paint. This one is cerulean. And again, I'm going to use my trusty brayer. I'm going to make sure the paint kind of stays right in the middle of my brayer because I just want to run it just along that outside edge. So I am paying kind of attention to where that is going. There we go. That's looking cool. I like that. Again, going to dry this layer. And there we go. I am loving that. Very cool. Stamping and stenciling and painting. I'm just going to take, don't know which one I want to use, just hang on. I think I might add some black splatters to this one. So again, taking my Posca, just going to squeeze that on my surface until I get a pool of color. And then I'm going to just splatter that on. Give that a dry. There you go. the tags will come together very quickly when you're doing your layers. And I know some people are intimidated by that, but just get your stuff out and just start creating layers. It's not really that hard per se. A lot of it just means getting your things out and playing and just layering them up. So what did we use on tonight's tags? Well, I used gesso for our first layer. We did stamping. We did painting. Hi, Anne-Lee. Thank you so much. Splattering. So I didn't need a whole heck of a lot of product to do this. I didn't need 18 different things to do layers. I used the same products over and over and over again to create layers on top of one another. So you don't need tons of things to create layers. And that's what I tell people. Create layers. Sometimes you don't like that first layer. Keep adding to it. Add a layer of stenciling. Add some splattering. Add some stamping. You don't like it? Brayer over a little bit of gesso or a little bit of white paint just to tone things down a little bit. But I am loving that. Love, love, love. Let me grab some of my other ones here. So there's another one I created. And this one and this one. So those all created just within the last 40 minutes or so. So not that hard to do. This one was actually the fastest and the easiest. It was one stamp. Sorry. It was a gesso tag. So I took a mixed media tag. This is the Dina Wakley white tags. Put a layer of gesso on it. I stamped the background, and then I brayered on 2 colors of blue paint. And then I did wipe back some of the areas with a baby wipe. Now, this one to me is really great. I love it. Now, if this is too much, like what I would do is if I wanted to stamp another image on top of that, and that's a really dark color there, but if I wanted to stamp a face or if I wanted to stamp something, maybe a sentiment, and I wanted it to show up, I would just take a little bit of light paint, cream, white, maybe a really pale yellow, and then I would just take my brayer and I would just brayer some paint on. So you can see how that transfers a tag that was really dark. So now it is push some of that dark paint to the back. It's still there. You can still see it, but it has toned it down. Now I could stamp a sentiment in there, and now it's going to stand out. I could stamp wherever that white paint is, and it's going to stand out. Okay, so like if you finish a tag, you don't like it, just put it away. When you come back to it the next day or an hour later or a week later, you're going to come back to it with fresh eyes, and maybe you'll like it. If you don't, grab some little white paint, brayer a little white paint over top of it, and it changes the whole look of it. It really does. Like I loved it before, but I like this now, and now I can see myself either doodling or I will do some stenciling over top of it. I could stamp a sentiment on there. I could stamp a sentiment on a piece of paper, cut it out, and layer it on there. And now my sentiment is going to show up because on that dark background, it might kind of get lost. But now that white paint will give me an anchor point for something else to put on top. So see how easy it was to transform that? Super easy. Sorry, just have to wipe my brayer up before that paint dries. There we go. Okay, let's bring these back in. Okay. This one, again, started with a gessoed background, brayered on 3 colors. It was the orange, the red, and the green. And then what I did is I liked the stencil, and this was a very fine detail stencil. And remember I said you want something with wide open spaces. I tried to wipe back the paint through the fine detail stencil, did not work. So I dried it, and then what I did is I took a Distress Oxide and inked it through the stencil that I wanted to use to add that top layer. And I'm absolutely loving that one. That is very cool. I would probably, I don't know what I would do with those edges. I feel like they need to be darkened up, but I'm going to leave it for right now. I don't know if this, no, it does still have a little bit of ink in it. This is the brush I used to do this stenciling. So yeah, I could go around the edge and add a little bit of ink to that. That might work, but I feel like it just needs to be a little bit darker. I might add in some, maybe just some doodling. Actually, I don't want to use black. I want to use gold. Oops, my gold one's already here. Here we go. So I always tell people, if you're creating backgrounds, just create the backgrounds. You don't have to finish everything off from beginning to end. Maybe just create the backgrounds and then come back later and do the doodling. Come back later and do some more stenciling. Come back later and do some stamping. So there, I just added a little bit of gold detail around those edges just to connect those two stenciled mandalas there in those corners. And I am absolutely loving that. Another tag to go on my pile. This one was using probably the most dramatic one, and that was painting that background with a rainbow of colors. And then I brayered over black paint and then wiped it back with the baby wipe. So both of these were done using the same technique, just painted with a rainbow of colors from top to bottom, put my stencil on, and you can see the stencils have wide open spaces, which means I can wipe back a lot of paint and just leave a little bit of the black paint on there. The black shows up really good on camera, but you could really do this with any. You could replace that black paint with any other color. You could use it with a bright white color, and that would look really beautiful. I could have done it with purple. I could have really done it with any color, but the black is really, really quite dramatic against that rainbow of color. And then I did add some doodling with my white Posca and some splattering with my gold Posca on both of those. And then this is the last one I did here. And again, first layer was gesso, did some stamping on the background, and then brayered on a couple of colors, the Bora Bora and the lemon meringue, so a green and a blue. And then we did more stamping, a little bit of stenciling with a Distress Oxide ink. And then I finished it off with just a little bit of brayering of the ink, or sorry, the paint cerulean around those edges. Okay, so there we go. There is some techniques using stencils and paints to create backgrounds. So I hope you enjoyed that. I hope you learned something. I hope you're inspired to get in your craft room, grab out a few things, start playing, get your hands inky and painty, because that is a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoyed joining me here this evening. I'm just going to switch back to my front camera. There we go. So I want to thank everyone who joined me tonight. Now, if you are looking for any other Monday Night Live videos, you can find them over on our YouTube channel. There's a playlist called Monday Night Live. You can find everything there. Give us a follow on YouTube, and that is where you will find all of our videos. Now, I will be back next Monday. It will be another Monday Night Live surprise. I will be surprised with a bag of product from the store, and I will open it live on the air and create with it. And fingers crossed it goes well. It's always a toss in the hat if it's going to go well or not with the Monday Night Live surprise. So thank you so much. Have a great evening, and I look forward to seeing you again next week on Monday Night Live. Bye.